What if the healthy granola bar you had for breakfast triggered the exact same brain response as cocaine, and your child's juice box could rewire their neural circuitry in ways that mirror drug addiction? And what if the food industry has known about this for decades and may have even designed their foods this way on purpose? Hi, I'm Dr. Autumn Smith, and today we're breaking down one of the most controversial and important considerations and conversations in nutrition science. Is sugar actually addictive like drugs, and what can we do about it? With pioneering researcher Dr. Nicole Avena, a Princeton neuroscientist who studied sugar's effects on the brain for decades. You'll learn what the latest research says about sugar and addiction, signs you may have a problem, and how to dramatically reduce your sugar consumption for more energy, vitality, and disease prevention. So let's dive in. Back in the year 2000, Dr. Nicole Avena is a grad student at Princeton University and has a wild hypothesis. What if ultra-processed foods aren't just unhealthy? What if they're actually addictive? Here's how Dr. Avena describes that moment.
People were, starting to talk about obesity rates going up and, how this is like a public health concern. We need to start to think about it and talk about it, but nothing really to the extent like we talk about it today. But one of the things that I always found to be curious was there's so many diet programs. There's like so many options for people to just like eat this and not that, right? It seems pretty straightforward, but people still really struggled and found it difficult to cut back on a lot of these ultra processed foods and the foods with a ton of sugar in them.
Back then, obesity and addiction researchers literally went to different conferences. They didn't talk to each other. Obesity was about willpower and addiction was about drugs. The two worlds never met.
My advisor, Bart, and I started talking about this idea of like, well, maybe like it's not the people that are not having willpower, but maybe it's something about the food. Maybe these like ultra processed foods are addictive, like drugs and alcohol could be addictive. And so at the time it was a crazy idea because nobody was talking about obesity and addiction in the same sentence.
So they gave rats access to a sugar solution to drink. The rats also had regular food and plain water. They were never forced to drink it. Then they compared these sugar drinking rats to the rats using cocaine, amphetamine, and alcohol.
So we started doing studies, just basically asking the question, can sugar be addictive? The results are yes. We found like through study after study after study that yes, sugar can meet the criteria that the American Psychiatric Association has for being a substance that can be addictive.
The sugar rats showed the same brain changes as the drug rats. Dopamine surges in the reward system, receptor changes, gene expression alterations, withdrawal symptoms, and tolerance, needing more and more to feel satisfied, and even binge eating behavior. But the study everyone remembers was when they gave rats a choice, sugar or cocaine.
We found that no, the rats actually preferred sugar if they had a choice. And other researchers replicated that finding and looked at other types of drugs of abuse, basically to see the same thing. So it really just underscores how powerful of a reinforcer sugar can be.
So why might this happen?
I think it kind of goes back to the whole idea that, we're supposed to be addicted to sugar to some degree. It's something in nature, natural. And so we have this like biological propensity to really like it. And so the neural circuitry is in place for us to get really addicted to it.
Our ancestors wandered for days to find a berry bush. When they found one, their brains said sweet equals safe and sweet equals survival. Remember this, seek this out. And babies' first food is breast milk, sweet, nourishing, life-giving. We are biologically wired to crave sweetness, but our biology was also designed for a world where sweet meant a handful of berries once a week, not 17 teaspoons of sugar per day. This is where it gets really interesting. Now, when you eat a normal food, like say a piece of chicken, your brain releases dopamine only if you're actually hungry or in a caloric deficit, or it's a brand new novel food you've never tried. That's it. That's the biological system working as intended. But what researchers have noticed about sugar is that it releases dopamine every single time, just like cocaine or heroin and alcohol. And this is why sugar can be uniquely dangerous and why a calorie isn't a calorie.
And so one of the hallmarks of drugs of abuse is that every time you use a drug, it releases dopamine in the limbic system, the nucleus accumbens, the reward system. And food doesn't do that. It only happens if you're hungry, in a caloric deficit, or if it's a novel food. But what's interesting about sugar is that it releases dopamine every time you use it. And so it's like a drug in that capacity.
Here are 5 changes that happen in your brain when you eat sugar. Number 1 is a dopamine flood. Your nucleus accumbens, your brain's reward center, you feel pleasure, motivation, and I want more of this. 2 is receptor downregulation. So over time, with excess use, your brain says, whoa, too much dopamine, and it reduces the number of dopamine receptors. Now you need more sugar to feel the same pleasure.
It's not just the release, it's also changes in the receptors, changes in the gene expression. It's really a very comprehensive change in the brain that happens as a result of consuming sugar.
Number 3 is opioid system activation. So sugar also activates your endogenous opioid system. Now this is the same system heroin targets. This creates that warm and fuzzy, everything's okay feeling. Number 4 is gene expression changes. So sugar's impact isn't only temporary, it changes how your genes are expressed. And these changes can be passed down to your children.
It is something that is epigenetic too, because we've seen that, during pregnancy, when a lot of sugar is consumed, then the brain changes can actually be passed on to the offspring. So babies can be born with this proclivity to consume sugar just based off of what their mom was consuming.
We're literally creating generations of sugar addicted children before they're even born. Number 5, withdrawal. Now when you try to cut back, your brain screams. Irritability, headaches, fatigue, brain fog, intense cravings. Dr. Avena found the same withdrawal symptoms in sugar-addicted rats as in cocaine-addicted rats. And the sad truth is, we're all binging on sugar, even if we don't think we are.
We're eating 16 to 17 teaspoons a day. And that's on average. The amount that we're supposed to eat is like 6 to 9 teaspoons a day. We're all actually binging on sugar. We just don't even know it.
Okay, so sugar hijacks your brain, but why does that matter? The truth is, sugar addiction might actually be more dangerous than drug addiction because it's socially acceptable, heavily marketed, pervasive, given to children, and its effects are not immediate, but can slowly creep up over time.
There's a couple different ways that we need to consider this. So first, there's the physical effects, right? So too much added sugar in the diet can lead to a host of medical conditions, including, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, it can lead to obesity, it can lead to heart disease, it can lead to certain cancers. So there's all these medical conditions that we know can be promoted by consuming too much sugar. Fructose is the component that is negatively impacting our liver. When you consume too much fructose, it's going to basically create a condition in which you're more susceptible to developing fatty liver disease. And so this is why we had to create a new name for fatty liver disease. It used to be that we never saw fatty liver disease in kids because fatty liver disease was something you'd only see in like 50-year-old alcoholic men. And now we're seeing it in like 10-year-old boys and girls. And they're certainly not drinking alcohol. They're actually just drinking sugar. And so we had to create the term non-alcoholic fatty liver disease to be able to diagnose these people.
You know that 3 p.m. crash, that brain fog, that's your blood sugar roller coaster. You're literally impairing your ability to think, focus, and learn every time you spike your blood sugar.
We are impairing our cognitive functioning because we all know if you're on the sugar roller coaster, you're going to not be able to focus as well. You're going to be distracted. We see this happening a lot with kids who are eating these, high sugar breakfasts, and then they get to school and they're bouncing off the walls and the teacher's not able to get them to pay attention, and then they're irritable and cranky, and then they have more sugar. And it's just this whole like roller coaster.
And this is where it gets really personal for me. When I eat too much sugar, I feel sad the next day. It's predictable, it's specific, and it's real. And psychiatrists are finally waking up to this. Your diet directly impacts your mood, anxiety, and even risk for things like depression.
There's the mood piece, which we are starting to hear more and more about. A lot of psychiatrist friends of mine are getting more in tune to this idea that nutrition plays a significant role in psychiatry that's been ignored essentially the entire time that psychiatry has been in existence. If you're sad, you're blue, your diet can actually have an impact on that. Your diet can make it worse, your diet can make it better. And so many people now in the field of psychiatry are like asking people, like, if they are diagnosed with depression, okay, well, yeah, what are we doing to treat your depression? But we also need to look at your food, because we could be treating your depression, but you're making it worse by eating things that are just going to exacerbate it.
Studies show sugar can suppress your immune system's phagocytic index, your white blood cells' ability to engulf bacteria, for up to 5 hours after consumption. Now, starch doesn't do this, just sugar. So every time you have that afternoon cookie, you may be decreasing your immune defense system for the rest of the workday. And over time, you can create insulin resistance linked to heart disease, cancer, reproductive issues, mood issues, and that's often happening silently, sometimes undetected by your doctor until you're type 2 diabetic. Now remember how I said your brain releases dopamine for novel foods? The food industry has capitalized and weaponized this.
I think it's important to keep in mind around the holidays and how we have a lot of companies caught on to this whole like seasonal release of certain flavors. Like for example, around, Thanksgiving, that's when you get the pumpkin spice, right? And you can't get it any other time of the year. So you got to have it like right now because you won't get it again until next year. And the same with like around Christmas time, we have the mocha, whatever, so again, it's kind of like this whole like cyclical like release of these different types of foods and flavors. That's playing into the addiction. That's like part of it.
Why do you think there's a new Doritos flavor every 3 months? A new Starbucks drink every season? Pumpkin spice only in the fall. Get it now. And you can't have it any other time. This isn't random. This is calculated. This is the food manufacturers making sure they can keep you eating their novel products all year long.
People want that variety. They want to be kind of like, if you will, like in a like pinball machine in many ways, like, going back and forth to these different stimulants.
Now, back in the 1980s and the 1990s, when tobacco companies saw the writing on the wall, they made a bold, profit-driven move, and they bought food companies. Philip Morris bought Kraft, R.J. Reynolds bought Nabisco.
I think there'll be more lawsuits for sure. I think that's kind of the way in which the ball gets rolling in the United States with change. That's how we work. And that's what happened with tobacco, right? It wasn't until this states started suing the tobacco companies that we started to kind of get this momentum that we had to do something about tobacco products. I think that's really the playbook I feel like we're going to see unfold again. But the sad part about that is it probably took a good 50 years to go from the point where people started saying, wait, I think like cigarettes might actually not be good for us. Maybe we shouldn't smoke them, to the point where we started to really see, hardcore regulation warnings.
Dr. Avina predicts we're heading toward the same lawsuits we saw with tobacco. There's already a lawsuit in San Francisco against ultra-processed food companies. Now let's get practical and talk about how to avoid sugar, which is getting harder by the day.
There's over like 300 different ingredients that can be considered as added sugar. So it's not like you just have to know the like list of 5 things. No, it's literally like a list that grows and grows and grows almost every day of all these different ingredients that the food companies are allowed to include in their products, and they're considered sugars. And then on top of that, we have all of these other sweeteners that are being developed and that are also being introduced into the ingredients.
Apple juice concentrate, just boiled down sugar, no fiber, no nutrients, anything that ends in OSE, glucose, fructose, maltose, dextrose, syrups, nectars, concentrates, and malts. Dr. Avina's advice is, if you see concentrate, no, it's just sugar.
The marketing is evil, because a lot of these companies will say, oh, well, it's sweetened with, apple juice concentrate. And, someone who doesn't know any better, and not like we're all supposed to know this, not like this is taught in school, right? I mean, if you don't do a degree in nutrition or like do this for a living, you're not necessarily going to know this. It's not common knowledge, but people assume, oh, apple juice concentrate. Oh, so it's apples, so it's fruit, so it's good. And it turns out that apple juice concentrate is basically just apple juice that's boiled down to nothing but the sugar that's left, and then that's what they use to sweeten it. So you're not getting the fiber, you're not getting the other nutrients, but it's parading itself as being a healthy ingredient.
But just knowing where sugar is found is only half the battle. So here are 7 research-backed steps to help you break free from the sugar addiction. Step number 1, start with beverages. Now this is the biggest needle mover. Liquid calories don't trigger satiety in the same way. They go down fast. And have you ever heard someone say, I'm so full from that soda? Never, because your body just doesn't register liquid calories the same way.
First steps for sure, and I say this to everybody, is start with your beverages.
Yeah.
Because the beverages are often a big source of calories that people don't realize. And they're a different type of calorie because liquid calories go down a lot quicker than the solid ones.
I just made a video about the most sugar-laden drinks, so check it out. But sticking to sugar-free soda like stevia, or using bone broth instead of coffee, or maybe even drinking water or sparkling water is a great start. And don't forget Dr. Avina's smoothie challenge.
Even if you're making a super healthy smoothie, which is great, take all of those ingredients and instead of chopping them up and putting them in your smoothie, eat them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to eat an apple, a banana, a handful of strawberries, oatmeal, peanut butter, you would be fatigued just from chewing that stuff. If you were to throw it in a smoothie and drink it, then yeah, it goes down like nothing, right? So you can drink calories much more readily than you can eat them.
I bet if you audit how many grams of sugar a day you are simply drinking, you will be shocked. Coffee drinks that have more sugar than donuts and Snickers bars, energy drinks, even healthy juices. Trade them for water, sparkling water, unsweetened tea, black coffee, or any of our Paleo Valley sugar-free beverages. But please remember, you don't have to be perfect, and you can start small too.
I'm not an advocate for this total abstinence approach. I know there are some people who are, and it's great and it works for them, but I think by and large, most people are abstinence failures, meaning that they've tried to abstain and it's not working. So now they're like, what am I going to do? And so that's where I'm positioning that you can just do more if you do less, meaning like have a little less sugar.
Dr. Avina's approach, sugar less, not sugar less. If you take 2 sugars in your coffee, go to 1.5, then to 1, then half. Wean yourself off slowly. This is totally valid and a successful path for many people too.
If you're a coffee drinker and you usually throw a couple sugars in there or have the cream with the flavoring and the syrup or whatever it might be, I'm not saying don't have it. I'm just saying have less of it. And you have to just slowly wean yourself off of it. And you can do it that way and you won't even miss it.
Step 2 is to savor your breakfast.
American breakfast is like a dessert that's been just at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like it's not breakfast. It is so much a dessert that it should just be called dessert. Morning dessert is what we should call it. We should have morning dessert and evening dessert.
Cereal is dessert. Pancakes with syrup are dessert. Muffins, cupcakes without frosting, they're still dessert. So here's what to eat instead.
I am a big fan of eggs. We have a farm and chickens, so I guess I'm like by default I have to like eggs because we got them for free. But so hard-boiled eggs and a half of an avocado. I mean, that's a great breakfast with a little salad or something like that.
Eggs, hard-boiled, scrambled, anyway. Avocado, healthy fats that keep you full. Protein like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, leftover chicken, and vegetables. Yes, salad for breakfast.
It's about like reframing your mindset around it. Like, yes, it doesn't at first come across as delicious as a bowl of, sugary cereal might be to someone who's used to eating that, but you feel so much better when you eat a diet that doesn't have a bowl of sugar in the morning involved with it. And you're going to feel satiated, you're going to feel satisfied, and you're not going to have the cravings for more food in like an hour, which is typically what happens to people who have, these high sugar, high carb breakfasts.
The result is no 3-hour hunger crash, stable blood sugar, no cravings for more sugar, and sustained energy and focus. Step number 3 is swap hidden sugars. Remember those 300 plus ingredient names? Your new rule is if sugar by any name is in the first 3 ingredients, just put it back. Now, this is the rule we teach our son, and you know what? He gets it. Even kids can learn this.
I would say, the one that I think a lot of people are just not aware of are the concentrates, like these fruit concentrates, because I think that we have certain terms in our lexicon that we just associate with being healthy. Now, I associate fruit with being healthy. Don't get me wrong. Fruit is healthy when you have it in its native form, but when you concentrate it, like that's not healthy. Anything with concentrate is just like, a red flag to avoid. And then I also think people are, not aware that anything that has an OSC at the end is usually a sugar.
Healthy granola bars, often 12 plus grams per bar. Pasta sauce. Some brands have more sugar than ice cream topping. Bread, even whole wheat, so check the label. Salad dressing, especially low-fat versions, they replace the fat with sugar. Yogurt, fruit-flavored yogurts can have 20 plus grams. Protein bars, healthy is marketing, so read the label.
We need to, as a society, kind of like do a little bit of a grassroots sort of intervention here and demand like more clarity and more, transparency with these ingredients. Because if people stop buying stuff because they don't understand what it is, then the food companies aren't going to be inclined to include it in the products.
Make your new best friend the ingredient list, not the nutrition label. The ingredient list. Step 4 is make a plan for cravings. During days 2 to 5 after cutting sugar, your body will scream at you with headaches, irritability, fatigue, brain fog, intense cravings. Now, this is withdrawal. This is your brain recalibrating. So when you cut back on sugar, you can go into stress mode. So your dopamine receptors are recalibrating, your brain chemistry is rebalancing, your gut microbiome is shifting. Sugar-loving bacteria literally die off, and that can release toxins. The withdrawal timeline looks like this. Days Days 1 to 2 is psychological cravings and mild irritability. Days 3 to 5, peak withdrawal, headaches, fatigue, intense cravings, and mood swings. Days 6 to 7 are often a turning point when symptoms start improving, and after 2 weeks plus, cravings diminish significantly and energy starts to rebound. Now on day 4, when you feel terrible, your brain says, just have a little bit, you'll feel better, and you will feel better temporarily, but you'll reset the clock and you're back to square one. You have to push through. There's no way around it. But if you have a plan, you're far more likely to succeed. So here's Dr. Avina's craving crushing toolkit. A is the salty switch.
There's a couple different strategies that you can take. Sometimes it's really just about, okay, I have a craving for the thing I always used to crave, right? Which is sugar. So sometimes you can kind of pull this trick where you maybe have a handful of nuts or something that's really salty, which is kind of the opposite. And so kind of like we were talking about a bit ago, how you have that variety. And so you're sort of changing your palate's mindset into oh no, now I'm eating something salty, and you can forget about the sweet thing, right?
So if you're craving something sweet, eat something salty instead. My favorite trick is our electrolytes that are sweet but flavored with monk fruit. You can also try a handful of nuts, olives, pickles, or a big old bite of sauerkraut. This helps you change your palate's expectation. Your brain says, oh, we're eating something savory now, and this sweet craving fades. This is why my first bite of the day is often a fermented food. B is the healthy sweet swaps.
There's nothing wrong with craving sweets. If you want something sweet, then that's great. But you have to just pick something that's healthy. So if you are craving something that's sweet, then, having a couple slices of apples, maybe that'll satisfy it.
So if you're truly craving sweetness, apple slices with a tiny bit of almond butter if needed, berries, stevia sweetened dark chocolate. I often have 5 to 10 chocolate chips when I get cravings, bone broth protein powder, and a spirulina hack. 1 gram of spirulina has been shown in studies to reduce appetite and cravings. So mix it in a smoothie. If the taste bothers you, you can try our greens powder, which also contains it. Number 5 is get curious about your craving and follow the 10-minute rule. So sugar is often a coping mechanism for stress, boredom, loneliness, or anxiety. If you take out the sugar without replacing the reward, you will fail.
A lot of it is psychological when it comes to cravings. And so, kind of getting at the root cause of what's leading to the craving, I think is really important. And so I think that supplements have a place, but I also think that, we can't just rely on the supplement and not address the bigger issue, which is often, stress, figuring out how to navigate in our food environment. We get stressed out, we get overwhelmed, and so we want to temporarily feel better. And so what do? You self-soothe, you self-medicate with food. And so what's that going to do? That's going to increase your dopamine. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to be rewarding. Asking yourself, is this truly a craving where I'm hungry? Or is this a hedonic craving where I just want to feel good? And I think a lot of people, when they step back and they're like, wow, I actually am not hungry. I'm just stressing myself out about whatever. And I thought about cookies and that suddenly seemed like a good idea. And that would have made me feel better. But now I realize no, I'm just stressing about whatever, so I got to cope with that. That's important because I think that helps people to dissociate between actual cravings for foods that they really want versus actual cravings for just pleasure and for feeling good, which are very different things.
Ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? Connection, movement, rest, creativity? Give yourself what you actually need, not what sugar pretends to provide. Step 6 is have a planned replacement.
The biggest thing for people who are struggling with managing cravings is figuring out a plan of okay, if I have a craving, what am I going to do? Because when you don't have the plan, that's when you end up diving into the bag of chips or the bag of cookies. Figuring out a plan, making sure you have something healthy to eat in case you have this craving that comes on. And then also knowing that you can wait it out.
The pleasure inventory exercise. Right now, list 10 non-food sources of pleasure. Walk with your dog, call with a friend, take a bath, listen to music, garden, read, journal, meditate, go outside, create something. Keep this list on your phone. And when you reach for sugar, check that list first. Ask yourself, am I actually hungry or do I just want to feel good? Most cravings are hedonic cravings. You're not hungry, you're stressed, you're bored, you're seeking pleasure. So if it is a hedonic craving, wait 10 minutes and the craving will pass, or try one of the activities from your pleasure inventory to fill your cup instead. Having a plan is critical. And step number 7, change your environment. Environment is everything.
I think that we need to kind of, and it's difficult. I'm not saying this is easy. Everybody's super busy. We just trust that, our food industry is going to produce foods that are healthy, but the reality is that they're not. That's not their job. Their job is just to make things that they're allowed to make. and not get in trouble for in terms of the government.
Yeah.
They're not a health company, they're a food company. And so I think we need to keep those two things in mind. And that's where I think the people have to really take ownership of what they're eating and like look at the food.
A, don't bring it home. If it's not in your house, you can't eat it in a moment of weakness. B, the fun food Friday roll. We let our son have sugar, but on a schedule, outside the home. So ice cream on Friday? Sure, absolutely. But we're not stocking the freezer with it. C is prep healthy options. Keep hard-boiled eggs, cut veggies, nuts, and healthy snacks visible and accessible. D is reframe food as reward. Stop using sugar as a reward for kids or for yourself. We have trained our brains. If I'm good, I get sugar. And this creates a lifetime association between sugar, love, celebration, and comfort. E is normalize not eating sugar every day.
I think it's good to be as a role model. Like I'm not doing it for that purpose, but I've seen, my kids at certain times where they're like, oh, I don't want sugar. It's okay. I don't want any ice cream. Like I'm not getting any. I just don't feel like having it. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to, just because everyone's getting it doesn't mean you have to. Like you could say no, but still go out and get ice cream, but just not have any ice cream. It's like totally possible.
You don't have to eat ice cream just because everyone else is. Dr. Avina and I both go to ice cream outings with our kids and don't get ice cream. I just ask for a bite and offer things like, I want to feel my best tomorrow, or I'm just going to skip it, or I just don't feel like it today. And her kids and mine have started doing the same. It's okay to say no. Also, for anyone wondering if genetics plays a role here, no, there may be a genetic component, but that we are all at risk.
There's quite a bit of literature looking at the dopamine DRD2 gene, which has been linked to addictive behaviors in general. And so people who have that genetic morphism often will be at higher risk for developing addiction to things like drugs and alcohol. That's also been shown with sugar as well, and food and processed food in general as having a link there. So yes, there does seem to be a genetic piece of it.
If you have this variant, you're at higher risk for addiction to drugs, sugar, alcohol, ultra-processed food. But Dr. Avina emphasizes,
I think it's important to keep in mind that we're all at risk. Even though we may not all have the genetic propensity, we all have the environmental influence. And so even, we always talk about nature versus nurture. Like, yeah, nature gives us something, but we're all basically being nurtured in an environment that is promoting us to become addicted to sugar.
So even if you don't have the genetic predisposition, your environment is programming you for addiction. We are all being raised and raising our kids in an addictogenic environment. Dr. Avina's research also shows epigenetic changes, meaning sugar consumption during pregnancy alters the baby's brain development. These babies are born with altered dopamine receptors, heightened preference for sweet tastes, increased risk of obesity, and addiction later in life. We're not just addicting ourselves, we're addicting our children before they're even born. This isn't a willpower problem, this is a systems problem. So where do we go from here?
Our kids are growing up basically like born into an addicted culture. And it's not even food only, it's internet, it's gaming, it's all of it, right? And so we have this like addicted generation. Like, it's to me important for us to keep understanding like how is this going to impact them and when they become adults, and how does this look like 10 years from now, so we can hopefully get ahead of it and help to mitigate some of the damage that is likely going to come out of it.
But here's the good news. You have more power than you think. Every time you read a label and put something back, choose water over soda, make eggs instead of cereal, say no to the office donuts, and pack your child a real food lunch instead of Lunchables. You are voting with your wallet, you are shifting the culture, and you are breaking the cycle.
I really hope that more and more people just kind of pause and just take a breather and sit back and really think about like, what do they want to eat? What kinds of foods do they want to be putting in their body? What do they want to be feeding their family? And if that comes at a cost of having to, really make some changes, change your schedule so that you can find the time to prepare the food and cook the food at home, it can be done. People do it all the time. We did it for generations prior to processed food, but we have to just as a society, like step back and say, okay, what do we want? And I think everybody wants to be healthy. We all want to live long, healthy lives. So I think we need to make that a priority.
So remember, this isn't about willpower. This is about understanding how your brain can be hijacked and how to take it back. You deserve to feel good. Your children deserve to grow up without this burden. So let's break the cycle together. Pick one step from this video, eliminating sugary beverages for a week, swapping your breakfast, reading ingredient labels before you buy, and start there. And let me know what you'll do in the comments. And if you slip up, that's okay. This isn't about perfection. This is about progress. So just make the next best choice and be sure to subscribe for more videos about how to eat your way to vibrant health.